Shalom, shalom, friends. It's an honor and delight to be here with Dr. Biti Roi, who is a research fellow in the Kogod Research Center for Contemporary Jewish Thought. Dr. Roi holds a PhD from Bar Ilan University. She lectures in the Department of Jewish Thought at the Hebrew University at Zohar Chai and at the Shekhina Institute, where she teaches Kabbalah and Chassidut. Her book, Love of Shekhina, Mysticism and Poetics in Tikkunei HaZohar, was awarded the Matanel World Union of Jewish Studies Prize for the best book in Jewish Studies, 2014 and 2017. Dr. Roi, thank you so much for taking time.
Hi, Rabbi Shmuly, hi.
Great. So to jump right in here, what is the Shekhina and how does it relate to the feminine?
Okay, so we can say that the Shekhina, maybe it's one, I think some of the scholars in the beginning say that it's one of the main great idea of the Kabbalah contribute to the Jewish world, that there is a feminine divine presence, and she is articulated specifically as feminine. And there's something to speak about God as a woman. I would say that, Urbach, in his big research about the sages, actually points out that the Shekhina is a synonym to God. Whenever we find Shekhina in the Talmud, we actually can switch the word Shekhina to God. Two that are studying Torah, Shekhina B'nehem, Isha, woman and a man, together Shekhina B'nehem. We can always change it into God. So Shekhina is a feminine grammatically word in Hebrew, Shekhina. But actually, it's the presence of God. Whereas in the Kabbalah, I would say in the Middle Ages, there is a kind of a shift, speaking about Shekhina. Not just grammatically, the word Shekhina is feminine in Hebrew, but rather she gets all kinds of articulations that actually portray her as a feminine. She can be either a mother, a great mother, Ima Ila'ah, and she can be also a wife. And specifically, she described as a feminine, and the qualities of her as a woman is crucial for understanding God's abilities and God's supreme powers. So I can say that the Shekhina maybe is the main or one of the main contribution of Kabbalah to the Jewish thinking and ideas, and maybe we can speak about it later, ritual also, but this is the Shekhina.
Okay,
the Shekhina is the divine presence. She here with us. Maybe you can say a few words about what she's characterized by or with. So one, I can say that she's characterized with the presence of God. This is actually the name Shekhina, which is the verb shachan. She's with us. So maybe God is a transcendent entity, but she's with us. Like wherever we go, it's also in a Talmudic writing, Galu Yisrael Shekhina imahem. She's with us. Wherever we go, she is with us. Secondly, I can say that she presents the unperfect side of God, if I might say that. God is omnipotent, he can do everything, he is perfections. We know it from the philosophy in that time. But she described the, I would say, vulnerable side of God. Galu Israel galta Shekhina imahem, whereas the people of Israel went into exile and the Shekhina with them. It says basically that there's a part of God, which is of course feminine, that she carries the vulnerability, the imperfection, the weak, a side of the divine. Yeah. The third thing I can say about this feminine aspect, the Shekhina, I can describe her, as I said before, in two parts of what is it to be a woman. Mm-hmm. It can be, a woman, the male knows the woman from the mother from maybe his sister, his wife, and his daughter. There are two main aspects for the Kabbalist about this feminine divine. One, she's the mother, or let's say the great mother. She holds us. She cares about us. We are longing to go back to her. She's the mother. Erich Newman wrote a great book. It published in English in 1955, I think. He calls it the Great Mother, the archetype of the Great Mother. In all cultures, there's something about the mother that gives birth. Giving birth for the Kabbalist is a very, very important and crucial power of God. He's a creator. He's producing constantly the reality. So of course he needs to have a womb. He needs to be a woman. He needs to be like a mother. So this is one part that the Kabbalists characterize in a very detailed way. The Bina, the M, the Ima Ila'ah, the Great Mother. The other one is the wife, which is more erotic situation. The relationship between the Kabbalist and the Shekhina in this side is more erotic. She's like the wife. The Zohar says that actually a male, the Jewish male, he lives between two women. One is the wife, the corporal wife, and the other one is the Shekhina. And in this situation, we can describe the contribution of Kabbalah to our religious life that adds passion to our relationship to God. If the Shekhina is a woman and the male Kabbalist is worshiping God and is worshiping the Shekhina, so it adds more passion into it. She is the female and he is the male. Of course, we speak here about a very imaginative world of the Kabbalist, which I personally love. That we live in this imaginaire, in this way of imagining God in all kinds of manifestations and ways.
I love it. I love it. So how does the concept, the intellectual concept of Shekhina, or the actual spiritual manifestation as it's lived, evolve from pre-modernity to modernity, and even in contemporary times, as the role of women changes in society, and as the understanding of the feminine evolves? How does the Shekhina among Kabbalists, or even beyond Kabbalists, evolve with those social changes?
Yeah, I see the Kabbalists from the Middle Ages in a very, ancient times, as one who can be very, very open to the idea of feminine, also describing God as feminine, but also seeing God in all kinds of ways. I would describe the rise of the feminine aspect of God as part of the undogmatic way of thinking of the Kabbalists. They are open in their mind to think about God in all kinds of ways, not like as a static entity, but as a dynamic entity that moves. I think that today, many affiliations and movements also in North America adopted the Shekhina. They love the Shekhina as part of their feminist, revolution, or trying to read the patriarchic text in our Jewish tradition as I would say vice versa, or to destroy them, and to put the feminine in the center. Okay. I'm interested not in fashion of things, and I think that the Kabbalists more in seeing them as a feminist way. I see them as a profound thinkers, that they can see God in all kinds of ways and not in a static way. And they can also see God moving. This is very interesting today. speaking about, gender and sexuality, they actually describe also the shifts from feminine to masculinity, from femininity to masculinity. And they called the Great Mother sometime the world of the male. In one aspect of this mother or motherhood, she can be also very tough, she can be very strong, and she can be described as the world of the male. So I see here fluidity also, and gender reversal or interchangeable way of sex and gender that for me is striking to see it. This is not to say that they believe in sociologically in a different role of a feminine, of a woman and a man, but is to say that their thinking is so broad and undogmatic that they can think also about moving, like we say today, you have anima and you have the animus, and a man has a part of a female and vice versa. So they can see it. So it's qualities more than something that is essential.
Yeah.
And they can see it moving and not static, dogmatic way of seeing the world.
Many find this compelling to look at the fluidity of gender and explore these different models, but others talk about a genderless God. Do you think there's value to also seeing God as beyond gender?
For me, seeing God beyond gender and also beyond gender is a kind of a boring. I'm saying it, a little bit as a joke, but if you're interested in a religious way of seeing God, as Rav Kook described it, that God and the world need to be together, and not that God created the world and left, or that he is the concept, the intellectual concept of the world, but it's something that is constant here and has to do with our life. So of course, gender and sexuality are part of our life, and the way that religious people, like the Kabbalists, describe God in a sexual way is, for me, striking.
Okay.
So they can say, God is beyond, his Ein Sof is beyond sexes, even though we can see even Kabbalists from the 16th century, like Ramak, that describe, as Moshe Idel described it, my teacher, he has also a womb in the very, very supreme level. So the way they describe God is not outside of sexuality and gender. Womb, to describe God as a womb, as a constant creation and creativity, is very important for the Kabbalist.
So picking up on this issue of the sexual, how does this, what you described as this erotic energy with the divine, get bridged into something spiritual? How do you bridge that experience from what you talked about, a spouse relationship, sort of a sexual erotic relationship, to the Shekhina? And how does that sort of phenomenologically or experientially become channeled? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting what you're asking. I'm thinking about it a lot. I can say that the Zohar, for example, describes that man goes outside to, he goes away, and the Shekinah is with him. But the Zohar deliberately emphasized that don't think that you can be with the Shekinah alone. If you're not married to a real wife, you cannot actually be with the Shekinah. So the Zohar actually see a very important role for marriage and for being with a real woman. And it's very important what you ask, and I'm thinking about it a lot. What does it mean to live with the Shekinah? And for what I said before, if you are, for example, in Hasidism, they will say, whenever you pray not for yourself, you pray for the Shekinah. And what does it mean to pray for a woman entity? But again, I see it as being part of God that is with you, with your sorrow, with your suffering, that is very powerful idea. I think this is the idea that made the shift, in the Yesh Kodesh, in the Piazetzna, in his writing during the Shoah. At the beginning, he writes about like the common tradition idea about sorrow and evil and suffering as part of punishment. This is like the traditional idea from the Bible, liturgic. And then, in a way, he comes to a point that he cannot hold on to this idea when he sees all what happenings around him. And then he comes to a shift, and this shift is to say, God is in the sneh. In the sneh. It's God is within us in the evil moments, in the sorrow, in the sadness, in the stress. And this is the Shekhina. This is the role of the Shekhina.
So very powerful. So can you share a little bit with us about the role of women in Israel today in shaping this? I know there's so many women in academia dealing with the Kabbalah.
Yeah. There's a lot of us, also friends of mine, that actually, not only, we also have men, but it's interesting that many of us as women find our way to this kind of, shelf in the Jewish bookshelves. I think it's also part of not finding a place in the yeshiva, As an Orthodox woman, I was looking for a place to rigid studying, and yeshiva wasn't like an option. And I think it was kind of a bypass, locating myself in a place that I can be, very good in this field, and not having the need to be part of the yeshiva masculine world. And as we said, I think that the Shekhina, sexuality and femininity are part of my life. And I think, of course, it's very striking for me to see this text speaking about this. Not only about this, but speaking about this. Not to say, for me, it's very, very important to see the undogmatic thinking. I think this is very crucial for my way of religion to see a text that is willing to break and to suggest innovations of reading more and more. So I think this is my own inclination towards this text, Hasidic, Zoharic, Orianic, whatever.
Great. Okay, so just one last question for you. How do you reconcile sort of the intellectual expansiveness, the breadth and depth of all of this with a Jewish traditional liturgy, which is highly patriarchal? So it seems like in the realm of ideas, it's so broad, but when it comes down to practice and tefillah, as we know it today, there's a big gap there, and I wonder how you reconcile that.
Yeah. So, I see language sometimes, as Bialik said, gilui v'kisui b'lashon. There's a concealed and revealed part of the language, and I don't see the language as what, as a Baal Shem Tov quotes somebody from the Middle Ages, Yada ben Yedaya Plini, he said, wherever you think, wherever a human being is thinking, there where he is. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's not so crucial. I understand that there's a historical part of liturgic, yeah. And I don't think there's a problem to say, to say something to God as a woman. And in few years ago, Kolech, which is the equal Jofa in the States, they came up with a new version of Birkat HaMazon. And they said one verse of Birkat HaMazon. I have a lot, but one verse in Birkat HaMazon they couldn't handle with. This was Ve'al beritcha shechatamta b'bsarenu, the covenant that you printed in our body. And they said, of course, it's masculine. It's a Ot Brit Kodesh. It's a Brit. So how can a woman say that? But in the Kabbalah, I find a lot of ideas about. It's interesting about letters that are inside the body. Like, there's shin in the nose, and the face is yud hey and vav hey, and this is also for women speaking. So, the Brit is one part. Brit, ot Brit, we say letter, it's also a letter. So I don't find it so rigid like the letters. I find it more interesting, the ideas behind this. And there's a lot of things to be done, but the spirit is so free. When I read this text, the spirit and the imaginaire is so free. This is what strike me more than this verse or that verse specifically.
Love it. So fascinating. And so much of us are in awe and inspired by your wise scholarship. So thank you so much for all you do and for this time. Friends, be sure to check out Dr. Biti Roi's amazing books and articles. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, Tov.